No basketball movie comes close to Space Jam. And no basketball star has carried as much tragedy as Michael Jordan. Released in 1996, Space Jam was not just for basketball fans. It pulled in people who did not even watch the NBA. It made people want to watch the ball bounce, want to hear sneakers squeak across the floor, want to see Jordan win one more time, but glory and happiness only existed on screen. Reality was harsher than you can imagine. Some people vanished. Some people went through illness, heartbreak, scandal, and crashes nobody ever thought were coming. So, today let's look back at the cast of Space Jam after 30 years and see where life has taken them. And make sure you stay to the end because I have one little treasure saved for the hardcore fans of this classic 5 facts about Space Jam that not everybody caught back in the day. Number 1, Michael Jordan as Michael Jordan. Let's start with Michael Jordan, the soul of Space Jam. Michael Jeffrey Jordan was born on February 17, 1963. When the movie came out, he was 33 years old, and this year he is 63. In the movie, he plays himself, but honestly, this was not a leading role in the usual sense. He was the name selling tickets. When Space Jam came out in November of 1996, Jordan had just led the Chicago Bulls to their historic 72-win season and another NBA championship, so the public did not see him as some player trying to step into movies. They saw him as the man all of America was looking up at back then. But the shine was only half the story. Behind that unbeatable image was a loss that was way too big. In 1993, his father, James Jordan, was murdered, and that blow shook Michael Jordan's whole life. If people only remember Space Jam as a fun movie, they have missed the heaviest and saddest part of Michael Jordan's story. After the movie, Jordan's life stayed glorious, but it was never smooth. His name stayed so huge, hardly anybody could touch it, but the gambling controversy followed him for years. That controversy was real. As for the rumors that the NBA quietly pushed him out of the league, there has never been solid evidence for that. Then in 2007, his long marriage to Juanita Jordan came to an end after nearly 2 decades. Looking at it now, Jordan's shadow still stretches a long way across American sports. He is still tied to the business side of sports, still present in popular culture, and from the 2025 to 2026 season, he came back to NBA on NBC as a special contributor. But maybe the thing that makes people stop the longest is what he said on television last year. If there were some magic pill, he would still want to put on shorts and go play ball today. And leaving the lead role that carried the whole movie, we move to a supporting role. Space Jam fans almost cannot forget Stan Podolak, played by Wayne Knight. Number 2, Wayne Knight as Stan Podolak leaving Michael Jordan. We come to a supporting face American audiences in the 90s could spot instantly with just one glance. Wayne Knight. Wayne Elliott Knight was born on August 7, 1955. He was 41 when the movie came out, and this year he is 71. In Space Jam, he plays Stan Podolak, the agent always scrambling around behind Michael Jordan. By the time Space Jam came out, he was already a very familiar face thanks to Seinfeld and Jurassic Park. Off-screen, Wayne Knight's life did not go in the loud direction the tabloids loved to chase. He never had some giant scandal that kept the public buzzing. Year after year, his private life has been a whole lot quieter than that. In 1996, the same year Space Jam came out, he married makeup artist Paula Sutor. That marriage ended in 2003. After that, he married Claire de Chenu and had a son named Liam. On screen, he could be loud, flustered, and funny, but in real life, he has been a much more private man, one who went through heartbreak and then quietly rebuilt his life. When people talk about Wayne Knight now, the thing that sticks hardest is not some scandal, but his long fight with his weight. Knight once said he tried just about everything for years, and in the end, he lost around 110 pounds from his heaviest point. Sounds like a victory story, but life does not always play that nice. He admitted himself that the weight loss hurt his career in a bad way because Hollywood and even the audience had gotten used to his old image. These days, Wayne Knight is still working. He is not standing in the middle of the spotlight like he was in the Seinfeld or Space Jam days, but he never disappeared Recently, he has still shown up on television and in new movies, including a guest role on St. Denis Medical and a part in 5 Nights at Freddy's 2. Some faces get older, get quieter, but the second they show up, a whole old stretch of time comes rushing back. And from one supporting role, we move to another major role in Space Jam, the woman standing beside Michael Jordan in the movie Theresa Randle as Juanita Jordan. Number 3, Theresa Randle as Juanita Jordan. Honestly, Theresa Randle was the kind of woman the screen in the 90s was built to make men keep staring at. Theresa E. Randle was born on December 27, 1964. That year, she was 32, and this year, she is 62. In Space Jam, she plays Juanita Jordan, Michael Jordan's wife. When Space Jam came out, Theresa Randle was already a familiar face to American audiences. She had been in Malcolm X Beverly Hills Cop, 3 Bad Boys, and later Spawn, too. But the later stretch of Theresa Randle's life went in a very different direction. She became more and more private, showed up less and less, and slowly stepped away from the lights that had once felt so familiar to her. Then, in 2023, audiences were surprised when she did not return in Bad Boys 4, and that familiar role went to Tasha Smith instead. What really stands out is that there was never one clear public explanation that answered everybody's questions. For a face that had been tied to that franchise for so long, that absence by itself became a big question mark. Then the reports that came later made Theresa Randle's name feel even heavier. In 2024, she was detained by the LAPD in a case involving suspected felony assault, but in the end, she was not charged because of lack of evidence. Then, in March 2026, she was detained again in a suspected domestic violence case and once again released because of insufficient evidence. That part needs to be said clearly. There were incidents, there were detentions, but based on what is public right now, there have been no formal charges. So what lingers is not just trouble, but also a feeling of regret. A face that once shined so brightly in the 90s is now returning to the public eye in a way nobody wanted. And leaving one of the main live-action roles, we move to an important guest face, Bill Murray. Number 4, Bill Murray as Bill Murray. Bill Murray is the kind of man who can show up in a movie for a minute and audiences still remember him for 10 years. William James Murray was born on September 21st, 1950. That year, he was 46, and this year, he is 76. In Space Jam, he appears as himself a special guest. But anybody who has seen this movie remembers him. By 1996, Bill Murray was already an icon of American comedy, from Saturday Night Live to Ghostbusters to Groundhog Day. But if you only look at Bill Murray as a comedy legend, you are still missing half the story. The later part of his life has gone through a lot of hurt. In 2008, his marriage to Jennifer Butler fell apart in a really ugly divorce that involved serious accusations like abuse, cheating, and addiction to alcohol and marijuana. To be exact, those were accusations in the divorce filing, not a criminal conviction. But just having all that laid out in public was enough to start darkening Bill Murray's image in a different way. A man who once made all of America laugh was now being seen as a man carrying way too many cracks in his private life. Then, as he got older, Bill Murray's name got tied to an even heavier situation. In 2022, the movie Being Mortal was shut down after a complaint about inappropriate behavior on set. Murray ended up settling with the accuser for more than $100,000. Then in 2025, he admitted he still could not stop thinking about it. Right now, Bill Murray is still making movies. The Friend is one recent example, and his family life still shows up in the press too, through his 6 children and the milestones of his son, Luke Murray, in basketball coaching. So when people look at Bill Murray now, they see both sides at once. One side is talent too big for Hollywood to forget. The other side is age-broken marriages and controversies that make the name feel a lot heavier than it used to. And leaving a guest star powerful enough to change the whole color of a movie, we move to a sports supporting role with the exact spirit of the NBA golden era, Larry Bird. Number 5, Larry Bird as Larry Bird. Larry Joe Bird was born on December 7th, 1956. When the movie came out, he was 40, and this year, he is 70. In Space Jam, he plays himself. By 1996, Bird had already been off the court for a few years, but he was not some quiet former player just passing through the screen. He was already a legend. If you look at his private life, Larry Bird is not the kind of man who leaves behind some long chain of loud scandals. His story is heavy in a different way. He grew up poor in Indiana, in a big family struggling day by day. His parents divorced when Bird was young, and then his father ended his own life in 1975, and the most painful thing in Bird's career came from his own body. In his final years in Boston, Bird's back started giving out, and by the 1991 to 1992 season, the NBA made it very clear that he was playing through severe back pain before retiring in August 1992. For older male viewers, this part hits hard, not because it is tragic in some Hollywood way, but because it feels too real. No matter how good a man is, no matter how tough he is, one day his own body can still stop him. And for Larry Bird, that happened way too soon. In real life, Bird had a short first marriage to Janet Condra and had a daughter named Corey. Since 1989, he has been married to Dinah Mattingly, adopted 2 children named Connor and Mariah, and lived a pretty private life. In recent years, he has still been tied to the Indiana Pacers as a consultant, and in 2024, his home state of Indiana even opened the Larry Bird Museum to honor his legacy. Looking at Larry Bird today, people do not see a life of scandal. They see a life of endurance from a poor childhood and the shock of losing his father to a back that hurt so badly it forced him off the court. Number 6, Tom Barry as James Jordan. Tom Barry, whose real name is Tom Gross, was born on December 6, 1950. When the movie came out, he was 46, and this year he is 76. In the movie, he plays James Jordan, Michael Jordan's father. Tom Barry was never the kind of name that made audiences light up with excitement. He belongs to that class of supporting actors old Hollywood lived on. His face fit older men, steady men with a little authority and a little life experience on them. After Space Jam, he kept moving steadily down that road, playing all kinds of cops, bosses, lawmen, and later he was probably best remembered for Cold Case. He is the kind of actor audiences might not name correctly, but one look, and they know they have seen him plenty of times before. In real life, Tom Barry did not go down a loud path either. Before acting, he had worked as a DJ in Cincinnati, then in advertising and voice work, and only after that moved fully into acting. He never had one giant scandal, and never had some public fall people could not stop talking about. He just kept working for years, then quietly stepped away from the screen. And from the father who appears only briefly in Michael Jordan's memory, we move to the little boy carrying that first dream, Brandon Hammond as 10-year-old Michael Jordan. Number 7. Brandon Hammond as Michael Jordan at 10. Brandon Hammond is the kid who holds Michael Jordan's very first dream in Space Jam. Brandon LaRon Hammond was born on February 6, 1984. That year, he was 12, and this year, he is 42. In the movie, he plays Michael Jordan at 10, and even though the screen time is short, that part plants the seed for the whole legend that comes later. What really matters is that by the time Space Jam hit theaters, Brandon Hammond was no longer some unknown face. He had already done Menace to Society, Waiting to Exhale, and then later Soul Food 2. In American movies of the 90s, that was an incredibly bright start for a boy who was only in his early teens. Then life turned hard, very fast. In 1998, not long after Soul Food lifted Brandon Hammond's name to another level and brought him an NAACP Image Award, he was diagnosed with Castleman disease, a rare illness tied to the immune system. Hammond later said that just a few months after one of the biggest nights of his life, he was basically fighting to stay alive. This is the heaviest part of the story. Not a scandal, not some fall he caused himself. Just a kid moving fast and then life suddenly stopping him right in the middle of the road. What makes the story even sadder is that for years, Hammond said he was advised not to go public with his illness. So all the audience saw was a child star who had been everywhere and then suddenly disappeared. No clear explanation, no big goodbye, just an empty space For a lot of men looking back at American movies from that time, this kind of story really hits hard. People thought this kid was going to go very far. Then it turned out that just staying alive and healthy was already a battle big enough. Now, Brandon Hammond is not that little boy anymore. He is making his return in his own way with the documentary project Sunday Dinner, The Soul Food Reunion, expected to come out in 2027, and he has also said clearly that he still wants to return to acting when the right role comes along. And leaving the boy who held Michael Jordan's first dream, we move to another young supporting role in the Jordan family, Eric Gordon as Marcus Jordan. Number 8, Eric Gordon as Marcus Jordan. Eric Gordon was born in 1988. He was only 8 when the movie came out, and this year he is 38. In Space Jam, he plays Marcus Jordan, one of Michael Jordan's children. Unlike Brandon Hammond, Eric Gordon did not follow the path of a child star who blew up and then stayed all over the press for years. Space Jam is still the biggest thing tied to the public memory of him. After that movie, he showed up in a few smaller projects like 413 Hope Street, Hungry, a short film called Eggo Waffles, and then Cross Addiction. His path did not lead to huge fame. It got a lot quieter than that. Looking at Eric Gordon now, the most notable thing is not a scandal or some big crash at all. He is still an actor and costume designer with work showing up in more recent projects like Covenant, Naomi, and Home Safe. The most interesting detail is that years later, people were still confusing him with the NBA player who has the same name. The Los Angeles Times even had to publish a correction saying that Eric Gordon of the Clippers was not the little boy who played Marcus Jordan in Space Jam. And leaving that kid who has lived pretty quietly away from the spotlight, we move to a sports supporting role who never knew how to live small, Charles Barkley as himself. Number 9, Charles Barkley as Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley is the kind of man who has never lived a quiet life in the normal sense. Charles Wade Barkley was born on February 20th, 1963. He was 33 when the movie came out, and this year he is 63. In Space Jam, he plays himself one of the most unforgettable sports faces in the movie. By 1996, Barkley was not just an NBA star. He was already a major figure in American culture. But seeing Charles Barkley as only a sports icon still leaves out part of the story. After the movie, the part of his life people remembered most was gambling. In 2006, Barkley himself admitted he had lost around $10 million gambling, and he even said it was a stupid habit he had to get under control. For a man as large as Barkley, that detail was not small at all. It showed that off the court, he lived just as hard as he did when he played and sometimes pushed himself way too far. Then, at the end of 2008, Barkley took another painful hit when he was arrested for driving under the influence. By March 2009, ESPN reported that he had started serving a 3-day jail sentence for it. That was the most public price he ever paid in his life, and it was also the moment when the image of a man who says what he means and does what he says had to sit next to another truth. When you live big, sometimes you fall hard too. The strange thing is that in the middle of all those stumbles, Barkley's private life has actually been pretty steady. He has been married to Maureen Blumhart since 1989. They have a daughter named Christiana, and by now they have become grandparents. And in the present day, Barkley is still one of the strongest faces in American sports television. In 2024, he announced he was staying with TNT Sports for the long haul, and later said flat out that he had left at least $100 million on the table just so the people he worked with could keep their jobs. That is pure Barkley. Loud, blunt, full of mistakes, but never pretending to be a perfect man. And after a sports supporting role that was always as loud as Barkley himself, we come to the last name on the list, Shawn Bradley as himself. Number 10, Shawn Bradley as Shawn Bradley. Shawn Bradley is the final name and also the heaviest story on this list. Shawn Paul Bradley was born on March 22, 1972. That year he was 24, and this year he is 54. In Space Jam, he plays himself one of the NBA players who gets his talent stolen. When the movie came out, Bradley was still playing in the NBA, and his 7'6" height alone was enough to make people remember him right away. He was not a superstar like Jordan or Barkley, but he was the kind of player who only had to step into the frame once and nobody could mistake him for anybody else. Looking back at the years that came after, what stays with people about Shawn Bradley is not scandal. It is a turn in life that was just too cruel. In January 2021, while riding his bike near his home in Utah, he was hit from behind by a car. The crash caused a severe spinal cord injury in his neck, and in the end, Bradley was left paralyzed. For a man who had lived through his body, who had played basketball with a height and reach almost nobody else had, that was a hit that was just too cruel. What makes the story even sadder is the life that came after the accident. People quoted Bradley saying he had some very dark thoughts after becoming paralyzed. Sports Illustrated later wrote plainly that his life will never be the same again, and even the height that once made him famous had now become a huge obstacle in recovery. In recent years, Shawn Bradley has made a few rare public appearances, and just seeing him in a wheelchair is enough to make a lot of people who grew up with the NBA in the 90s go quiet. Looking at Bradley today, people do not remember a life of scandal. They remember the price time sometimes forces a person to pay. And now that we have finished this Then and Now journey through the cast, this is where we come back to the movie itself with the 5 most interesting facts about Space Jam that not everybody noticed back then. Now that we have gone all the way around the cast, I want to go back to the movie itself. Nothing huge, just 5 little details that people who really love Space Jam usually like bringing up with each other. And honestly, the more you look back, the more you realize this movie really is such a specific slice of America in the 90s. The first detail sounds like just a joke, but it is actually very Michael Jordan for that time. There is a part where Stan walks into Michael's hotel room and starts rattling off Hanes, Nike, Wheaties, Gatorade, Big Mac. It sounds funny, sure, but really, that is a whole lineup of brands tied tightly to Jordan's advertising image back then. The movie gives the audience a very clever wink right there. It is like it is saying, this is not just Michael Jordan the player, this is Michael Jordan at the center of a whole advertising empire. Back then, which one did you tie to Jordan the most? Nike, Gatorade, or McDonald's? The second detail is exactly the kind of thing men who love sports usually get a kick out of. The story that Michael Jordan always wore his North Carolina shorts underneath his Chicago Bulls uniform was not just some fun rumor. That was a real habit of his, tied to his college years, and people also saw it as a kind of good luck ritual before every game. Looking back now, it is kind of amazing that even the greatest guy on the court still had his own lucky charm. Back when you played sports, or honestly, just back when you were younger, did you ever keep some silly little lucky habit like that for yourself? The third detail is the kind of thing a lot of people get wrong, even after watching the movie for years. Plenty of people think Lola Bunny had already been around forever in the Looney Tunes world, but that is not true. Space Jam in 1996 was actually Lola Bunny's very first appearance. In other words, this movie did not just borrow old Warner Brothers icons, it also created a new character who later became tied to the memory of a whole generation. If you used to think Lola had been there before, do not worry. You were definitely not the only one. The fourth detail feels instantly like pure Michael Jordan. During filming, Warner Brothers built him his own private training space, usually called the Jordan Dome, complete with a full basketball court so he could practice and play anytime he wanted. Other people go make a movie and get their own trailer. Michael Jordan went to make a movie and brought a whole basketball court with him. If you could pick one kind of perk like that on a movie set, what would you choose, a basketball court, a gym, or some giant game room? The last detail, Murray's appearance in Space Jam, is usually seen as a fun callback to the NBA commercials he had been part of in the middle of that decade, where Murray seriously claimed he wanted to play in the NBA and then got questioned in a fake press conference setup. At the end of the day, Bill Murray is probably a guy who never really gave up on the dream of sneaking into an NBA game, whether in real life or on screen. Space Jam probably is not the kind of movie people sit around arguing about anymore, trying to decide whether it is good or bad. It feels more like a place you go back to Michael Jordan, back to the NBA of the 90s, back to Looney Tunes, and back to that time when finishing a movie made you want to grab a ball and run outside right away. If Space Jam was part of one of the best stretches of your life too, tell me in the comments, what is the very first thing that pops into your head when somebody brings up this movie? And if you like these sit-down moments with old movies too, stick with the channel. We have got a whole lot more great memories left to dig back up.